Now, 6 months pass, and here comes Bob's friends, the legal, security, and privacy advocates for his company, and they say, oh my goodness, we made a mistake 6 months ago, or maybe the laws have changed, or maybe some other conditions have changed, but they say, you know what? We don't need to validate the email address. We need to validate a cell phone number instead. Oh my goodness, today, in today's world, that would be a huge needle scratch because then you'd have to bring in Bob and all of his developers and say we've got to change the server code. And you know that's going to break all of those client applications that are out in production. It's going to be a pretty jarring event to all of the customers. But with PLOA, remember, they don't talk to the software developers on the server side. They don't talk to the software developers on all those different clients. They go to the enforcement point manager and they say, hey, can you bring those rules back up? We don't want to validate an email. We want to validate a cell phone. And I'm going to push that rule out there. And now, when we go to click Call Foo again, with that same old authentication session that we had from 6 months ago, the reaction is going to be a little different for Monique. It's going to get a message that says, hey, you never validated your cell phone number with us. And we're going to send a pin out to your cell phone. And if you would just bring that up real quick and enter the code in that we're sending out to you here, why, we'll get this whole matter straightened up in a jiffy. I'm going to go out to Monique's cell phone right now. And I just got the PIN code in. It says enter 3214 into the application. So I'm going to enter 3214 and hit verify. And look at this. The user experience is so familiar to her. She's seen it before and she successfully got through to Hello World. Once Monique validates any of these attributes a single time for any client, for any relying party, well, it's already taken care of for all the rest. She's only going to see these kinds of challenges once. But over time, we think that this is going to start to change the way people think about using software. We feel that they're going to develop something called transactional context. Instead of monolithically hitting them up for a lot of information at the very beginning of using an application, they can only enter the data as it's needed over time, and they only have to enter that data a single time to support it. So if you think about it this way, probably the easiest way to approach it is, when was the last time you went to a website and they hit you up with like a 65-page legal document that you had to agree to before you access the website? Well, I don't know about you, but I rarely, if ever, read those documents all the way through. I just say I agree and I go on in and just try to revoke those agreements at some point in the future. There's literally no way that I know of to reach out and try to figure out how to revoke any of those terms and conditions I've ever agreed to. But within PLOA, instead of just protecting it with attributes, we open up a window where that company can say, we would like to support this particular transaction with a very specific terms and conditions, or a very specific consent, or a very specific contract, or a very specific third-party licensing agreement. And you simply do that by pushing this out in a standard way to that enforcement point. And now nobody can access Foo unless both of these conditions are put in place. An email address, a cell phone. Well, let's go ahead and click email address too. Let's push them all out there. So now Monique has already satisfied two of them, her email and her cell phone. But when she goes to click this Call Foo again, this time she's going to get this one window pop up that says, get this, in order to use Foo, you give the relying party permission to verify information about you with your identity provider. The relying party will not store any of this information, and you acknowledge and agree blah 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 about Foo. Now customers can be presented with true terms and conditions and consent information that they can easily understand and digest and agree to, because it's very transactionally contextual in nature. So I'm going to click I agree, and again the user interface is returned to the client, which tries, and we get back a success. And if you're really following this, this also opens up something new for us. For the first time, we can talk as a global community about supporting the idea of revocation. Not just of legal agreements, but of attributes as well. And the way Monique is able to manage that is she brings up her personal profile and she can see all the information that she's entered, all the information she's validated over time, and all the terms and conditions or other types of agreements or consents that she's accepted. And she can say, my name is no longer Monique, I've changed it. Or this is no longer my cell phone, I've changed it. Or, you know what, I don't agree to those terms and conditions. Or she can revoke them all. And once she's done that, then she can continue to use this tablet. She can continue to use the application. If there were any other buttons on the UI, she could push them to her heart's content. But the next time she goes to call Fu, well, her identity provider is going to step into the conversation and say, you know what, we got a few things to take care of, like we need you to agree to those terms and conditions, we need you to verify your email, and by the way, we need to go ahead and verify that cell phone number one more time. So, PLOA, as you've seen it, has supported a relying party talking to an IDP supporting a client. But if these two blue lines right here are standard protocols, you know, kind of like the same way your email client talks to an email server, it's the same way regardless of what company you're dealing with. Well, that means that if that's a standard and that's a standard, that means that we can support multiple relying parties talking to one or potentially many identity service providers, supporting thousands of client applications for billions of customers, and the entire approach scales worldwide. This means that with personal levels of assurance and the four main components of the architecture, we can bring relying parties convenience. We can bring developer groups more productivity because they're no longer interested or no longer having to develop security, privacy, and legal logic into their code. They can focus on the business logic. It means that identity providers can grow because for the first time we're providing an ability for relying parties to be automated on their onboarding to those identity providers. It brings to the world contextual understanding of transactions, meaning that customers can fully understand what they're doing when they're doing it. And it brings the ultimate scalability. But most of all, it brings absolutely the best solution for customer privacy, security, and control. That's personal levels of assurance, and that's the innovation that AT&T gave away to the world. So we're looking for partners and we're looking for developers to join with us as we begin to carve this out and make this a worldwide transport protocol standard so that we can all grow together and help the customers find better privacy, security, and control.